I'm Tom McMillan. Join me as I interview professional sports people on their journeys making it pro. I'm on a mission to explore the mental strength and dedication required to make it in professional sport. If you like what I'm doing, please remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Hope you enjoy the episode. Steven, lovely to see you. Thanks for joining me on Making It Pro.
You're more than welcome.
Good to see you. So what I'll do, I just fire straight in with the first question and we'll go at it. So if you can tell me, what was your earliest football memory?
Earliest football memory would be 7 or 8. I was playing over the local park. It was a Saturday morning. I grew up in West London, so it would have been Brentford in the community. Had a little session on a Saturday morning, and I went and played, and I got like player of the morning, and I went home with a trophy, and that was it. I was hooked from that moment on. I was like, that's it. I love it. I want to go back every Saturday, and then I want to play Sunday. And then before I know it, my parents were taking me 7 days a week to various different football all over the country. So that was the first moment for me.
And that, I suppose, that special feeling, especially like we always say, what gets rewarded gets repeated. But you know, it goes without saying you've had a specific talent. But when you get a trophy at the first day, you must have felt pretty special, eh?
I did, yeah. I felt really good. And when I was young, I actually got a lot of trophies. But it's funny, I did a post on LinkedIn today, and I was saying, like, I haven't actually got any trophies in my career, which is sad. I want a trophy, you know. Like I'm 31 now, still got a few years left where I can potentially win one. But it's crazy. Up until 16, I was getting MOMs and we were winning the tournaments and stuff. But I always say to like young kids in particular, like those years for me were like the best years in terms of playing football, because as soon as I made it professional, it is what it says. It's you are a professional. It's no longer fun as such. It's a job. We have fun within it, but it's certainly changed from the days of 13, 14 playing around playing local park to obviously being 31 and in a relegation battle. Every game's important, and you get the good feeling when you get the 3 points, but you're fighting for those 3 points. So everything in the build up is extremely serious.
And I think now, obviously, as your career has unfolded and you look at the game now, even from when, it's like almost half your life ago when you were experiencing that, but the money that's involved in the game, and you see now the managers, how quickly managers are sacked, the pressure involved in the game today is probably greater than it's ever been, I would think,
I would agree. I mean, I would actually say there's statistics to back up what you're saying, because looking back, especially when I first started, I mean, Yeovil, Bristol, Swansea, I had one manager the whole year. So even that year at Tottenham, I had one manager the whole year. And then it was when I went to Cardiff where it changed, and the manager got sacked, and Malky Mackay was at the time. He got sacked. Oliver Solskjaer came in. Following year, Redknapp sacked. Chris Ramsey came in. So it definitely the first few years of my career, it was probably a lot easier because you knew where you stood. You had one man to lead you, and he led you the whole season. Whereas now it's just chopping and changing, and the managers are under immense pressure to get results. And I think that has an effect on them. I definitely think that has an effect on them. Not everybody can handle that pressure, and unfortunately, in some cases, sort of coaches aren't fulfilling their potential, because I know a lot of good coaches that just unfortunately don't get the results. And I guess the difficult thing as a manager is you're not in control. I mean, even as a player, I mean, what are you actually in control of when you head onto the pitch? You're in control of how hard you work, how hard you run, give 100%, but you're not in control of the result. There's 21 other players on that pitch, plus subs, plus refs, linesmen, now VAR. So, but I guess as a manager, you literally have to trust your players. So it must be quite nerve-wracking, I guess, knowing that you a couple of games, a couple of losses, you could be out. So a bit difficult.
I mean, it leads me on to a great point, actually, which you've made really well there. When you are at that younger age, you come across, and I'm going to ask you now, that when you joined the first time you joined a team, but just on the point you've made, Stephen, when you're a young player at that age, 8, 9, 10, 11, or whatever age you actually make the commitment to a structured team. You know, you find managers at clubs like that and managers for like 14 years, and I took the under 16s for 12 years or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
You know, so I think as well, when you're developing as a young player, that opportunity to form a relationship with a manager, or maybe you elect, actually, I'm not bonding with this guy, that you go and search another club or whatever. But it's actually, that's a really good point that I've got to say I haven't considered. When you become a professional player, you've been in a situation where you could well have had a manager for 8, 6 or 7 years, and then all of a sudden you could have 3 managers in 18 months, and one likes you and one doesn't. And how do you cope with that, you know?
I mean, I'm in that exact situation right now. I joined Wigan in January under Kolo Toure. We played together at Liverpool. Really good guy. I'm a really big fan of him. I got just over 14 days with him, I think. It was maybe between 14 and 16 days, and he was out and he was gone.
Yeah.
And new manager comes in a day later, and you're having to adapt a game. And you have to start a game. And you know, then he wants to bring his own signings in, and it's all part of the process. But it's very much like a merry-go-round in football. And I guess when I was younger, I probably struggled to deal with it. Whereas now I go, okay, you know what? My job hasn't changed. My job's the same, which is to perform to the best of my ability and try to keep Wigan in the Championship. And with them sort of goals in mind and being able to keep focused, I find it far more easier than when I was younger. I would get emotionally involved. You know, I would be like, well, no, because I came to work with him. I don't want to work with him. You know, it's almost like the child in me would want to come out. But no, it's completely different. And you know, on the note of Wigan, I mean, we got a really good guy now in Sean Maloney. Never knew him before, never played with him or anything, but really good guy. And I'm actually enjoying sort of learning from him, and especially because I'm looking towards the coaching side. It's really nice to work under different coaches and see their philosophies and take little bits. And he's got a lot of good stuff that he's doing with us. We're just hoping to get the results as soon as possible. So
I know Sean's a really good wee guy. He was actually a client here, Stephen, on what I was saying to you earlier. He's a good guy, Sean. We're for similar areas. But he did really well at Hibs as far as the style of football. But again, what we were saying a second ago, he didn't get long enough to really implement it. They were playing nice football and not getting results, which was fortunate. But anyway, so when you were at that age, what age were you when you first joined us at a structured club and an actual a team setup?
15. Yeah. I talk about academy, like professional.
No. Like just going and playing with your local boys club.
Yeah, Sunday League. Yeah, it was following on from that sort of that day, that community day at Brentford. So maybe that year or maybe a year later. So you're talking 8 or 9, around 8 or 9 would have been in the Sunday League. Absolutely loved it. Really, really, really loved it. Then from there, went on trial with Brentford Academy. Got a couple of trials with Reading, Chelsea, a few other teams. So was let's say standing out at that level. But whenever I went on trial, I got nervous. You know, I got nervous and felt uncomfortable, and I didn't perform to the level that I know I could have performed at. But again, that was all part of the learning experience for me. Like, why do I play well here and then don't play well there? I couldn't understand it as a 12-year-old, as a 13-year-old. But obviously, looking back, it's far easier to sort of like break down and digest
what
it.
happened.
Yeah.
Did you know, when you would get the opportunities to go and trial, did you have anybody you could talk to, or did you have any support or a mentor even from the club that you were playing with regularly? Did you have anybody you could sort of, you know, you could confide in about how you were feeling when you were going for a trial?
No. But you have to remember, you're going back, you know, 16, 17 years. That stuff wasn't around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That wasn't around. We weren't, especially men, we weren't talking about how we feel. We weren't talking about what's going on for us and all of that. That's, if you look at it, I mean, it's fairly recent. I did an article in 2017 where I came out and said publicly about my issues. And I remember at the time they were saying you're the first current player to ever say it, because most players sort of get to the end of their career, then they speak for obvious reasons. Obvious reasons, to be fair. But I felt I needed to get it out there. I wanted to get it out there. But anyway, so going back to your point, there wasn't anybody at the time that I could speak to. So it was just kind of me going there, you know, wearing obviously a different kit to everybody else, walking onto the training pitch. And just
I know.
felt uncomfortable.
Isn't it amazing, actually? You've just picked up a point there, Stephen. Isn't it amazing? Like I've seen my own son when they've gone, when here in Spain and at Malaga, or when we've been back, he's been invited in trial, and you go and trial at a club, and you mentioned Reading, he went, they were pretty good, that obviously gave him all the kit, but the first few times that he went, he was in his own kit. You could pick him out from 100 yards.
Yeah.
And I've always felt psychologically, I remember even my own business, we had kids worked with us at the weekend. From the first day they were there, I used to make sure they were kitted out.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing better than feeling part of something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, using Reading as an example, I'm sure they have changed. I actually know a few guys there who are doing a really, really good job. So I know they've changed actually. But going back all them years ago, I mean, I was on trial for about 6 months, and in the end, the reason why I no longer went was because I turned up to training on a Saturday morning, and the training was off. There was no training, and I just at that moment realized I'm not even part of their communication. I'm not even part of their email list or whatever it was at the time. And send that to 4 people. I wasn't even on that list after sort of 6 months at the club, and I just said to my dad, I've had enough. I don't want to go back again. And I felt free. As soon as I said them words, I actually felt pressure's off. Do you know what I mean?
What age were you then, Stephen? Would you remember?
Honestly, it's difficult.
14, 15.
My memory's terrible. Maybe a bit younger, maybe 13.
13.
Yeah.
And see, when that happened, when you started to get invited into those pro clubs or academies or whatever would be the term, that obviously changes all the time. But when you were getting invited into those opportunities, you said there about feeling free after it. Did you start to did some of the fun of football start to leave? Did you feel the pressure at that age?
100%, definitely, because I knew what it meant. The second I went to an academy or a trial, I knew, okay, this is it. Even when they told you, the scouts are here today. The scouts are here. Wow, okay, need to perform. I was desperate to make it as a footballer. That's all I wanted to do. And I wanted that opportunity. But sometimes when you want something so bad, you can overthink about it. You can overcomplicate it. And you know how I actually got signed? I will tell you. I got signed at Tottenham at the age of 15, right? I said, I think 5 or 6 rejections prior to that. I trained on a Tuesday. I remember, I think I went to training off the back of a couple of wine bars and I brew and trained because it was the cheapest thing to buy back then. And it's gone there. My dad always said to me, look, Tottenham's too far. And, if you didn't get into Brentford and stuff like that, look, it's unlikely to get into Tottenham. So I wouldn't, bother with that one. Yeah. And I just wanted to try. Thought, why not? Let's try. I've got no pressure on me in a way if my dad's telling me that. So I could go try. Had that one session. They said, could you come back on Saturday? I said, okay. Came back on the Saturday. It was a game. I brought studs thinking, obviously it's a match. We're going to be on grass. No, it was inside of the dome. So I had to borrow the academy managers, not the academy coach for the under 15, the academy manager, John McDermott, the big boss. I borrowed his boots, which were a size too big, old school Puma Kings they were. And the pressure was off because I thought
everyone's going against you.
Exactly. And I went out there, played well for, I don't know what it was, 90 minutes, I guess, or whatever it was. It was a training game, could have even been shorter. Came back in the office and said, we want to sign you. Let's give you a deal. And
how did you feel in that moment?
When they said they're going to sign me?
Yeah.
I was ecstatic. It was almost surreal because it was wow. I just almost couldn't wait to tell everyone, wow, I'm going to sign the time. And then you get all your kit. And then you get that feeling, that feeling that we're talking about. You just feel like a part of something, and
you belong.
Well, was so special. I loved my time at Tottenham as a youngster. I had pressure for sure, but every player's under pressure because it's dog eat dog. So very few of us actually make it.
Yeah. And when this is something that just actually, even on a sort of personal level, that see when you got accepted at Tottenham, Stephen, did you feel like when you then went to the beginning of that journey and you started training with them, did you feel, right, I'm part of this, now I can just play? I noticed the reason I asked you that, and sorry, it's just the basis of the question. I noticed it in my son. My son went over, he'd had a couple of trials, and then he went over where I said to you, he did 3 days, and they said, "Look, we're going to offer you at the end of the week."
Mm-hmm.
And he went and played for like the 21s. It was like within days or weeks. I mean, he flew, you know, and I looked at him and he said to me, he said, "Dad, what he actually elated to was he felt like you said there, it went back to just enjoying playing football."
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say, you know what? I'm trying to think, like, I mean, I also flew. I went like from so signed as I said, as a 15-year-old. I was then playing with the year up almost straight away. Then even as a school kid, then as an under 16, I was then playing under 18. So I was playing 2 years up. And then by the time I was 17, I was playing in League One, making my debut. So you're talking literally space of 2 years. Like, so I flew, right?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that I felt that freedom that your son felt. I wouldn't say I felt that. I would say, I mean, we were talking about it last night. Someone was saying, you definitely have a dose of imposter syndrome. And I said, maybe I do. I mean, it's not something I've really looked into. But even now, at the age of 31, I still feel like at times I need to prove myself. I do. I still feel I need to show that I'm good enough, you know?
Yeah.
So, it's quite sad to say, but I guess I've never felt free. I've always felt at whatever level I'm at. Well, okay, I've done it in League One. Now I need to prove I can do the Championship. I've done it there, then to the Prem, and then can you do it at a big club? Can you do it at a big club? And then, you know, so you'll see it. Now I'm sort of highlighting it. Like people go, oh yeah, and I said, you know how many times they say like, well, can you do it on a rainy night where it's Stoke? Right. Oh yeah, but can you do it there? And you start to think back and actually people are questioning the best of the best all the time. You know, Varane, he comes to United having been a multiple Champions League winner. But can he cut in there? Can he cut in there? Do you know what I mean? And you just constantly question Cristiano Ronaldo after 20 years at the top, alongside Messi as, you know, two of the greatest players of all time.
Absolutely.
Yes, a few bad marks, then I said, it's not good enough.
He's finished. I know.
He's finished.
I think the media as well want to, you know, it's easy to tell a bad story. And even when you look at Messi, there's videos now where they're sort of celebrating that obviously he added the final bit to the puzzle, which was to win the World Cup. But 95% of some of the videos I've seen on social media is showing you all his failings. And there are far fewer failings. I mean, you know, you've seen that I did great joy and I've been friendly with him for years. I mentioned Henrik. And I remember when Henrik was at Barcelona, and that's when Lionel Messi started breaking through. And Henrik was there 2 years, and he said to me, "Wait till you see this kid that's coming through." I remember talking to him personally about Messi. And I always loved Ronaldinho. I loved that he played with a smile on his face and the way he played. And I said, "Oh, Ronaldinho will always be the one for me." He said to me, "Wait till you see this kid play." Now, he could see it. I think Lionel Messi was 16 then, and when Henrik was there. But the greatest player in the world, as you say, are the greatest players like Maradona and Cristiano Ronaldo. I think it goes with the territory that if, you know, if you'd like to the job you're doing yourself at Wigan, Sean Maloney, or people that have come in to help to resurrect, obviously, Wigan all through for such a long time with such a big club in English football and great memories at Wigan English football. If you were to go and win the league this year, far less at survival, immediately the goalposts will move and the tests and examination points will change.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. It's far easier to come into a relegation team and sort of go, we've got nothing to lose. You know, with 4 or 5 points adrift, there's nothing to lose. It's far easier to walk into that than it is to go, okay, I'm going to join Burnley in January, and I'm gonna add to what they've already got. You know, 15 points clear, 20 points clear. I think they've got the chance to go 21 points clear over the weekend. So, or whatever it is, you know, it's maybe a little bit more difficult that way than it is. Well, we've got nothing to lose. So I mean, I've been on both sides of that, if you like. Joe, I've been at Tottenham, been at Liverpool, where you're expected to win week in, week out. You're expected to win. You've got that pressure. And then I've been on the flip side of it, where I've said I've 2 relegations from the Premier League. I'm now in a relegation battle with Cardiff, with Wigan. Excuse me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like here, the pressure is different. You know, it's a different kind of pressure. So. It's definitely challenging, and you know, mentioning Cardiff, I had that experience with Cardiff, and I had that experience with QPR, so I'm familiar with it, and I sort of try to use my experiences to help us as a group sort of go through this phase because it is difficult.
And that in itself can be a challenge, because obviously that you have been through that experience, you know, with clubs similar to Wigan and similar in stature, that historically big clubs and clubs that nobody wants to see getting relegated. But as a result, you can actually end up finding managers saying, like, we'll go and sign Steven Caulker. He can be relied on in a situation like this.
Yeah.
He can be counted on. But what happens is you end up maybe for periods of your career playing under that kind of pressure week in, week out. And that's not fun either.
No, it's not. I mean, you look at Sam Allardyce, Tony Pulis, Neil Warnock. Neil Warnock he's still getting dragged into it. Do you know what I mean? He's still like, you know what, we need to stay up. Okay, well, you sort of, the go-to isn't it? It's an Allardyce.
Absolutely.
It's a Sean Dyche. It's you know, Neil Warnock and so on. So it's very much okay, we go to them. So I mean, I'm sure they don't complain, like you know, getting the job and continuously getting jobs, but they constantly come in the deep end. So they don't come into a mid-table team. It's very rare you will see a mid-table team even change their manager. It's more either the teams at the top that are chasing or the teams at the bottom who are struggling, who want to change because
Well, I know that obviously, you know, you played yourself under Brendan Rodgers and almost had the opportunity to go to Scotland and play under him. And I remember at the time at Celtic, and that was a real strange, and a lot of Scottish football fans sort of raised a real question of doubt, because he had such success with Celtic. And I think he was unfortunate at Liverpool. I think, you know, you take obviously the slip with Steven Gerrard, the famous one, but I think at the time he was very, very close to having been the one to win the title with Liverpool. But then going to Leicester, he went from a situation where he'd been under severe pressure at Celtic, because if you're not first in Scotland, if you're Celtic or Rangers, you're last, you know. So and then he went to Leicester and wasn't under that kind of pressure, because even where he's had a bad run over the last year, periodically, he's had little bad moments. At Leicester, you know, if he finishes anywhere in the top 10, 7, 6, you're keeping your job. It's only when you get to his elite positions, you know. But when you come through, because I know obviously, as you say, Stephen, and you know, I've checked and stuff, you come through and you were playing League One at that young age. But even in a physical sense, did you feel you had developed well physically at that age, that you were, you know, did you grow early as a youngster? Could you handle it? Did you feel any physical challenges at that age? I mean, that's a big jump.
Yeah, I mean, I was tall, so I was a fair size, but obviously I didn't really have any real muscle. So I spent a lot of time like building muscle in and around, you know, well, especially when I went full time. I'd say when I went full time as a scholar at 16, that was when I sort of hit the gym, sort of gym programs and start to build you up. Because as I said, you know, a year later at 17, I was then playing league football, and League One was very physical at the time. So I was sort of always in the gym there at training as well, just sort of building up. But I'd definitely say by the time I was 19, I was probably fully built, which is still quite young, because I look at some of the boys now who come up and train with us, and they could be 19 and they're still quite scrawny, you know, still quite slim and
skinny.
So it's like they're still got a few more years to develop, to sort of fill out. I guess I was quite lucky that it happened fairly soon.
Yeah, because you can see it in some of the players today. I mean, obviously, it's for me, it's an absolute joy to see how many managers are bringing young players through now and are making their debuts at 18 and stuff. And it seems to be that it seems to be more frequently and across the board. But obviously, you can see that. You see there's a sort of spindly aspect to some of the players' legs, even where they're filled out in their shoulders, but they've not fully developed their leg muscle. And I think it's a fair point you make as well, because once you go full time, you can be in the gym and you're now doing a job that you can dedicate every hour of your working life to. And even outside that, and even
the right foods. You know, so sorry, I was going to say, you also have the right foods. I mean, when you're not full, before you're full time, well, it's quite difficult to eat, you know, to the standard that they want you to eat to, because you might not have the money. You certainly don't have the time, because you're traveling here, there, and everywhere. You're on the road or you're on the train and going to train. So it's only really when I went full time, it's like, okay, like we can have to start, because we've got the food. You know, they put us in digs, and you know, we stayed away from home and we're in digs, and they're cooking for us daily. So that also helps. I mean, nutrition is obviously a huge part of your, you know, your overall health. So definitely helped me sort of bulk up.
How did you find that experience, even like going into digs at a young age? Did that feel quite a tight or peculiar sort of setup?
Yeah, I felt like it was fine at the time, but I was probably a little bit what words would I use? I was a little bit young, let's say.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I was misbehaving from time to time, and
yeah.
I got moved on from a couple of digs. I remember one time I was ordering fake ID, so I was ordering ID to show that I was actually 18, I think it was, so I
Yeah,
could go to one of the nightclubs with my friends. And
yeah.
I remember I got the ID sent to the address, and they opened it and saw it and told the club. So then I don't want him to stay here anymore.
Yeah,
I was like, so I got moved on, and yeah, so I had some funny experiences, but also met some really amazing people that
yeah,
really took care of me and have become friends for life. You know, we still
yeah.
stay in
That's
contact,
brilliant.
and you feel almost part of the family. You know,
Yeah,
so you definitely have that. There's also some of the boys who had a completely different experience, where it was like
yeah.
they literally felt like they were living away from home, whereas for
Right.
me it was like a home away from home, so
Yeah,
slightly different.
yeah. That's crucial. I saw Kevin De Bruyne actually said he did an interview recently, and he said that the first 2 years were the hardest, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and I realised as time went on, and towards the end of the 2 years, if I'm going to be away from my family, then I'm going to make it worthwhile. I'm going to make,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to serve a purpose, and that's when he started to focus really on his career. But I think it's difficult for a lot of young players. And then obviously at that stage as well, you started to get international interest, and
Mm-hmm.
you were getting picked for England at youth level. I mean, how did that feel, getting getting the call up and stuff?
It was incredible because I was always like upset that I wasn't involved in like the 15s or 16s, because I was like,
Yeah,
oh, I feel like I'm playing well and I'm playing up levels, you know, at Tottenham. But England was still like, and because the way they do it with England, the national level, it wasn't your school year, it was your actual date of birth. And
yeah,
my date of birth was is 29th of December.
December. Yeah,
So I'm the youngest for my age. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Bar a couple of days. So
yeah,
if I was like 3 days later and I was born on the 1st of January, I could play in the 92s, and I probably would
yeah,
have been called up a little bit earlier. So
yeah,
I always struggled with that because I really
yeah,
wanted to be a part of it. Eventually, I got my chance for the under 19s, and it just it was incredible. It was such a good
yeah,
feeling. I had a really really good coach, Noel Blake, really good coach. Really sort of I don't know, I really felt like he took care of us as players, you know,
yeah,
really sort of looked after us. And I
yeah,
don't just mean looked after us as in on our trips. I mean,
yep,
really sort of put us in a good position to sort
yeah,
of kick on in our careers. I really felt like he was good. And
yeah.
yeah.
Would Was he sort of maybe like the first, again, going back to your point right at the start of when we first started speaking, that, having a manager that's with you or with you for a length of period of time, did you have any coaches that were like mentors like that you thought, you know what, he's really looking out for me, not just in the football side, but steering you the right way?
I was so fortunate coming through, for
Yeah,
sure. Like coming through, been far less fortunate as a pro,
yeah,
but making it pro.
yeah,
I had Chris Ramsey at Tottenham. He's now at
yeah,
QPR. John McDermott again at Tottenham. He is FA technical director now,
yeah,
and Alex Inglethorpe at Liverpool
yeah,
who is now at Liverpool. So
yeah,
all three of them have all gone on to do really well, and that's no surprise because
yeah,
they were really really good for me. And also, I would love to mention the late Cyril Regis. He was
yeah,
my agent.
brilliant.
Amazing, really, really,
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
really good guy, and so helpful, you know.
yeah,
And so I sort of had coaches who were behind me, who supported me, who really wanted us as players to do well, would
yeah,
even drive down and watch our games when we're playing for England or when
yeah,
we're on loan. They really would commit to us. So
yeah,
I was fortunate as a pro. Very
yeah,
different, but
yeah.
making it pro, I was
Yeah.
lucky.
Aye.
Mhm.
Funnily, I did an interview. There's, I don't know if you would know the Scottish agent, John Viola. I've known John many years, even at a personal level, but I did an interview like this with John this week as well, actually. And one of the things I was asking, and I see that they're just adapting the rule as far as when representation of a player can take place, and obviously the
Mhm.
sport of guardian. But did you feel when that happened to you the first time you were approached by an agent? How did you feel about that, Stephen, yourself?
You're taking me back. I mean, the phone rang. The home phone rang.
Yeah.
I don't even know whether people remember what that is nowadays.
You used to turn the buttons. I know. God. Should see the ones I had at my age. I'll tell you.
Really, yeah.
Oh God.
So the home phone rang. It was Cyril Regis. He'd gotten my number somehow, and he spoke to my dad, and so he worked for Stella, which was a huge, which is a huge company. But what he did was he sort of took care of a lot of youngsters sort of on their journey, and then once we got to a certain level, we went with the sort of boss of the company, and it was more just about the money, but sort of still stayed with me, you know, was always still there as sort of like a mentor, but just more from a distance. So yeah, when I got the call, it was exciting. It was exciting. I didn't know who he was because I was like, I don't know, because it was before my time. But my dad obviously knew who he was, and he's like,
I do.
Like, yeah. So let's meet. And we met, and I mean, the little touches. I mean, it means nothing, but at the time it was great. They used to get me free booze, so I think
Massive.
once a month.
Massive.
Honestly, it's as I said, in a bigger scheme, if they would have made millions from me. But there's many people that obviously don't make it. They don't make their money back from. But obviously, they have deep pockets because of the percentage that do make it. But that little touch was just nice. Do you know what I mean? So I mean, on the bigger scheme of it, it's nothing. But at that time, I was like, oh my god, I get free booze, mate. Free booze. You know what I mean? So that was nice.
That, do you know what? It's against me, and I've said to you, obviously, you know, we've spoke on LinkedIn stuff, that the amount of crucial points that you pick up. My son was actually approached by an agent really quite early, went over and spoke. The guy's been great because he's kind of stayed at a distance until something starts to materialise. But when they went for the first meeting, he'd asked him what size he was, and he'd a pair of boots and trainers for him. And when we came out, I'd actually taken on board all the stuff that had been said to him that mattered. And all he was interested in was he got home and he said his mum got free boots and free trainers.
Yeah, that's it.
I think that's being in touch with young people, knowing what their needs are, you know. And see, even obviously, because I know it's changed now, and you know, going on to like your captaincy early on, but when you get called up for England, and I know even obviously with Mark McGee, you could have ended up representing our country. You know that I think your grandmother's Scottish, is that right?
Yeah, my grandma's Scottish. That was close. That was close at one stage. I sat down with. I think it was actually during the time maybe Craig Levine was manager.
Mark McGee was the assistant.
So that's it. Yeah, so a little while back, but I wanted to play for England at the time, and it came pretty quickly. You know, so I was playing England on the 21s at the time. Scotland approached me, and I was then sort of straight into England. A few years later, well, quite a few years later, 5-6 years later, I spoke with Steve Clark, and it must have been 7-8 years later. To be fair, it wasn't that long ago. It was a couple of years ago. I had a good conversation with him and just sort of said, look, at the time I was young. I made a decision. Obviously, I've spent time in Scotland with Dundee. I'm quite often up there. I was actually up in Dollar, where I've got family. It's
lovely there.
Yeah, beautiful, so beautiful. I was actually up there 2 days ago, so really nice. And so I was a big fan of Scotland, and I also like the people. You know, when I went there, I went to Dundee. I was broken, dude. I was in a bad place, but I just got such a warm welcome. You know what I mean? I really felt it. So we had a good chat. And he just sort of said at that moment they had other players that they were looking at, and that was that. And then shortly after, the opportunity to go to Sierra Leone came around. So everything happens for a reason. I actually did a post, talk about LinkedIn. I did a post about it the other day, just where sort of doors close, but then sometimes years and years later, other doors open. You go, actually, you know what? Like that's
meant to be.
One. Exactly.
And did you feel any? Obviously, it's difficult because it happens to a lot of young players where maybe because of, and it would be the case for my own son, you know, that he's an English mother and a Scottish father. Did you feel any pressure as far as not letting a family member down, or sort of siding with one family member over the other if you picked one of those nationalities? Did you feel any stress or pressure on that?
No, because my family were really chilled. I was fortunate. I never sort of had that. I mean, they were, let's say, skeptical when I said I'm only going to play for Sierra Leone, just because like, are you sure? Like,
Aye.
you know how it's like, is it got a good setup
Safe,
and all of that, and you know, and everything. So just being any parent, just sort of a bit fearful.
Yep.
But I'd been to Sierra Leone before, and had it felt like again I had a really strong connection there. So I wanted to do it. Been a hell of an experience, and I can tell you a year and a bit later, I understand why they're like, are you sure? Like, you ready? Are you ready for that? So you have to be ready. If you're coming to play in Africa, you have to be ready. But like, it's the feeling is it's magical. It's not like any other feeling I have playing for club football. It's such a special feeling. So I love it. Mm-hmm.
And through all those stages, Stephen, obviously, especially when you were at your younger years and you're getting picked, you know, and obviously signing for Tottenham at such a young age, and then, you know, England and all the different things. And I know, obviously, as you say, you know, winning man of the match awards, or you start to, especially nowadays, sponsors taking interest stuff. Did you find it easy enough to stay grounded yourself? You know,
I did. Yeah, you know what I did. I mean, I got caught up in addiction. You know, that was sort of been, you know, it's a big part of my story. I'm open about it. But people tended to, I guess again it's changing, but people tended to at the time think he loves the lifestyle, loves to be out drinking and loves to party. And I guess what people couldn't see that actually is I couldn't stop. And most of my drinking, 70-80% of my drinking was done at home. You know what I mean? It was sort of done at home or an empty pub or an empty bar. And what happened was when I did drink, I would black out, and then I could end up anywhere. And then I'd be, you wake up the next day, I'm in the newspapers and various other crazy places. And that for me was like a really sort of like a really difficult experience for obvious reasons. One, because I was battling so much internally, but also externally. I was being judged, and I know it hurt obviously it hurt my parents a lot seeing their son struggle as much as they did, but it also hurt my dad in the sense that I always just remember him saying to me, like, that's not you. Like, what these people say about you, that's not you. Like you're kind, like, that's not you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think you got a problem with drink. And I just be like, no, it's because of the gambling. Because I knew I had a gambling problem, but I didn't want to accept I had a drinking problem. So so yeah, I mean, I know that's kind of not what you asked, but it's linked. It's linked heavily with kind of sort of like my story. I feel like I've always been sort of grounded. I don't feel like as I said to you, I'm the opposite. I feel like I've still not made it. You know what I mean? I've still not, you know, 300 and whatever professional games later. I still don't feel like I've made it. So I definitely feel grounded, but at times I wish I felt a bit better about myself. You know?
It's I mean, I don't know if I've said this to Stephen, we've spoken in the past. My dad's dead now, and he was my hero, my dad. My dad was 42 years sober when he died. And I know from, I've been brought up with, like, I don't drink myself either. It's another story for another day, but the thing that worried me about alcohol, particularly because that was the issue when we moved here out to Spain, is so easy to drink. Every day is a holiday day. It's so easy to put a drink in your hand. And I started to see unhealthy habits forming that I didn't want in my life, you know, and I was able to control it before it became a real problem. But I remember, you know, my dad has always touched on that. And I think it's actually really worthy that you've made that point, because young players who may well be feeling today how you felt at that time and can't identify why they feel like that. But sometimes with addictive problems, that self-examination is always going on. My dad used to talk to me about it all the time, you know, and I think the problem is, certainly where the problem's magnified in a situation such as your own. My dad could do his drinking away in a dark corner and nobody was really interested in him or what he was doing out with his own family. You could well be doing that, and then on a Saturday going out in front of 50,000 people, half of which want to celebrate your problems and shout them at you, you know. And that must be tough to deal with as well.
It was, and I mean, in particular with the gambling, because I just, you know, the drink was more visible, let's say. So when the drinking really took its toll, my performances really dipped. Do you know what I mean? Because it became a bit more, it's glaringly obvious, actually, I should say. With the gambling, no, that for me was probably the darkest times, because I could do it, you know, I could do it online, you know, hours before the game. You know what I mean? And I then have to go out there and clear my head and think, wow, like, because as a compulsive gambler, I don't stop when you've lost a bit. No, like I go all the way until I've lost absolutely anything and everything I can get my hands on has gone. That's when I'm like, oh, okay, I could stop, but until that moment kicks in, it's severe. So then that was mad for me going out onto a pitch. But I tell you what, at times it helped because this was going on from 17. So for the first few years, it helped me because I had no pressure. I had no pressure going onto the pitch because my pressure was, how am I going to pay these people back? How am I going to eat? You know what I mean? How am I going to eat? So that was kind of, I guess, sort of, in a mad way, kind of helping me. But as I said,
driving you.
Definitely. And one thing I also mention is just on the drink one, just because I've heard so many people mention it lately, is you don't have to drink every day to be an alcoholic, right? And I guess that was probably my biggest battle with accepting that I'm an alcoholic, because I said, no, I'm not the park bench drinker. I'm not the everyday drinker. Like I'm having some amazing times in New York or here, there, and everywhere. Like I'm not that kind of drinker. But actually, when someone explained to me, can you drink without consequences? And the answer for me is no, because 2, 3, or 4 times out of 10, I would have consequences, and those consequences were so huge that the answer was staring me in the face. I cannot drink without consequences. So I was a binge alcoholic. There are very different ways, but the same result. So I messed up my body 2 days a week or 2 days a month even. But in them 2 days, I'll do so much damage that it's actually, you have a problem. So I just mentioned that because if anyone's listening to this and think, well, I'm not the everyday drinker, it's like, you don't have to be. You don't have to be a everyday drinker to have a problem.
Yeah, I think that's a terrific point. And obviously, as I say, I mean, I've spent I've went to AA meetings with my dad since I was a wee boy, because I was always at my dad's side. But I think as well, I found personally, and again, in case anybody's listening, because there are, as you say, there's no one script of what an alcoholic would look like, but there are many similarities in the behaviour that surrounds being an alcoholic. And I found when you start looking at, certainly for me, I never drank during the day. I never drank if I had work. I never drank if I had a commitment. I wouldn't drink if I had somebody, a commitment to somebody or anything like that. But when all that was done, when I knew, like, as you say, drinking at home, if I got home and all bets are off, I don't need to go back out of the house, then I'd drink. So you would condition it to suit your lifestyle. But the one thing was, I was definitely having a drink. And that was the concern to me, Stephen, when I started making that, it was in my head. Not like, you've had a good game, maybe you've got 3 points and the gaffer said, listen, go and enjoy that, or it's somebody's birthday or whatever. There was days where I was starting to say, right, if I've done that by 6 and that by 7, at 7:30, I'll be able to go for a pint, or I'll be able to. Then what you're doing is you're actually planning to drink. That worried me. That really frightened me, And I think, again, getting back to your point about gambling, my dad used to say it to me, certainly as regards drugs when I was young, because that was coming alive when I was a young lad, that when you're consuming drink, your body will only allow you to take so much, and then physically you just get big gambling. There's no end, and that's what is the most terrifying thing, and especially for a professional footballer who would have access to money and access to getting money. It's a scary. So it's terrific that you've opened it, and I know that you're open about it and that you've shared it. And obviously, as your life was starting to change, because you look at without being, again, egotistical, but Cardiff paid over £8 million for you. That is a serious sum of money. It was a club record for them at the time. Did you find that the circles of people around you, was there people trying to attach themselves to you because of your sort of fame was increasing? Did you find that a challenge at a young age as well?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely was people. Yeah, there was a few that were like that. But what I did was I had a group of friends who I'd known for a long time, who were really close friends and are still close friends today. But what I did was, and I probably didn't realize at the time, and we have these conversations quite a lot nowadays because we've all sort of matured and sort of grown up in various different stages of our life. We haven't. Some of us are still growing up, to be fair, but let's say on the whole, we're all a lot more mature. And I look back now and I say, you know what? At the time, I probably enjoyed hanging around with you because because you were low as well, I knew you wouldn't judge me. I know you couldn't judge me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I knew that I could do whatever, and you're not going to judge me. And they're like, actually, you know, it's the same for us, because we knew with these guys, no one's going to judge us. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if I went out with one of the Prem players, you know, they would have their shit together. I mean, that would be, whereas I didn't, and then I would feel less than. So I would rather go with my mates from back home who haven't got their stuff together, because I then don't feel less than, and I just feel okay. You know what I mean? And that was really, it's looking back, it's quite sad, but that was what I was searching for the whole time, just to feel okay, and to feel part of something, to feel wanted, because for whatever reason I didn't feel that. You know, I don't know what, I don't know why, but today I find that a lot easier. Do you know what I mean? I find that a lot easier. So I guess some of it is just different stages. You know, sometimes I can overcomplicate it, and I can try to look into all the details of this and that, but sometimes it's just part of growing in
that's right.
a certain stage of life.
I think as well, though, if you actually get back to, you know, that's obviously an off-field experience, and it we all like our comfort zones, and and we all like familiarity. But I think as well, if you actually go back to what you said right at the start regarding feeling that you're always trying to prove yourself, that's okay when you've committed to it being your profession, and you don't mind, because you know you're going to be judged on the pitch, or if you get into coaching, you're going to be judged on results, whatever it may be. But when you're actually having, especially if there's demons there, you're having your private life away from the pitch. You don't want to be judged then. And you definitely, my dad, again, used to say to me, you know, misery loves a partner. My dad would do the same. You'd start to fish out people that like to drink as much as he did. And then what you do is, because he'll stay at 1 a.m. or 2. I mean, when I got to the end, Stephen, when I chucked it, that's what really happened. I ended up sitting at a table one night and looking around the table, and consciously, and I was drunk, and I remember saying to myself, if it wasn't for that, you know, the glass on the table, I wouldn't be sitting here. And that was the end. I've never drank since, and I consciously thought, this is, and again, and I know you're the same, I can sense from the same type of thinking, or you're feeling, I don't judge anybody, I just like people, and I like, if I can, to try and assist or help people. But there are certain levels of life where I think I'm not going there. And I don't want to live that, you know. And I think as well, as you say, as you mature and develop as a human being, the example you want to set, and again, I've got to say this to you because I read all of your posts on LinkedIn. I think the example that you're setting for young professional people, not just footballers, but professional people, if they're following what you do in LinkedIn, your experience of life that you're sharing with people is always worth a read, and there's always an insight that makes people think, which is why I like reading it so much, but also why I was so keen to speak to you, you know. And so it seems 100%. I mean, as time's going on now, Stephen, obviously, like a lot of the people I've interviewed so far have been at the end of their careers, and you're still playing and you're still active in your career. But looking at football nowadays, looking at young players coming through nowadays, the side that you are certainly putting out there about the emotional support and a lot of the sort of off-field support that a lot of young players need. Like, how do you feel about the game in that sense? And this isn't a controversial question. It's just to ask you, like, if you were 15 or 16 today, 17 today, about to embark on what you have embarked on, would you be looking, you know, from the senior position you're in now and say, I just wish like that person could have stepped in, or somebody could have stepped in and helped me with that, or helped guide me? Do you see anything now where you think that's a hole that could be filled? I'd like to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely an area that I'm exploring, and I'm constantly looking for ways to help. I just think that the support isn't there. I think the lack of emotional intelligence amongst our coaches, amongst our sporting directors, is having a big effect on team performance, because they want to look at team performance. I say, well, that has a huge effect on team performance, individual performance, which then again affects the team. And then people's personal lives, because just simple communication skills that I just don't believe that we're good enough at. And I say because I'm part of that as well. I'm part of the industry. I don't want to be sat here pointing fingers, but we can definitely do better. And there's so many examples where I see young kids come up and train with the first team. They're freezing because, you know, they're not allowed to wear trousers or gloves or jackets, because then you've got to be tough because you're the youngster. I don't understand it. Again, it just sort of separates them from the rest of us. You know, everyone else is there in rain jackets and hats on because we're in Wigan and it's winter and it's absolutely freezing. So small details like that, like just help the boys feel a little bit more comfortable. And then as a result of that, going back to when I was a kid, when I wasn't comfortable, I couldn't perform. So when they've got that, 60 minutes with the first team and they come up there and they're freezing cold and they look different, they feel different. They're not familiar with us because they keep them so far away from us and all that. Like, it's so difficult for then you just to get that moment where you've got to perform
and take it.
Exactly, and take it whilst the coaches are talking to you in a language which I wouldn't want to be spoken to like that. And there are times when I think,
I know,
what is that? So I try just on a day-to-day basis at the moment whilst I'm still playing, just make a little change. Going over to the boys saying, hello, how you doing? You okay? You like that kind of stuff. It's freezing today, isn't it? Just something as soft and as subtle as that, but just to sort of make them feel a little bit more comfortable. I can't remember all of their names. There's so many of them, you know what I mean, sort of coming up and that. And then just making the talks a lot more relatable. So I've set up a company called Behind the White Lines, and we're sort of like showing, well, basically what it says on the tin, football behind the white lines. So I'm interviewing lots of players. I'm also interviewing players who have been released and their careers gone that way, their life's gone that way. I'm interviewing their parents, what's it like for them, people who have tragically taken their own lives and stuff like that. So I really want to showcase the whole side of football and in the hope that it helps players and parents better prepare for what it actually looks like as a footballer. Because, one other point I will just mention now, not to bang on about it, but is education. So I look back and go, education. Oh, yeah, education. But I look back now and I think, well, why does America do it the way they do it? Why is it that if you haven't got your grades, like it's not for you. Like you're not going to be able to step to that next level. And I look and I think, do you know what? Like I'm sat here now and I'm like, I've got to go do my coaching badges in May. Great, I've still got time to do them, but I wish I did them when I was younger. I wish I had them when I was younger. And like now, like stepping into the business world, I'm doing all stuff like trying to create websites, trying to do this, and I'm like having to outsource everything because I never learned as a kid. And so I just think that like that should probably be more of a focus for us is the emotional intelligence and then just getting qualifications. So you've always got one, something to fall back on, but two, you've also got some form of identity because you're not just a football player. You're not just a football player. Like you're more than that. You could be a dad, you could be a son, you could be a brother, you could be a friend, and you could also be a qualified PE teacher, a qualified accountant, whatever you want to be. So I just think that's something for me personally that I would like to see changed, and I'm working hard to try to achieve that.
Passionate about it. I think as well, I mean, obviously, I'm a good bit older than you, Stephen, but I've always felt the same. I remember having a conversation with one of our friends who was a prominent professional footballer and earned good big money at the game. And I remember having a conversation with him, and I was saying to him, "You've got to manage it well." I said to him, "The job that I do, I could probably do my job to my 60s if I need to. So I can always turn a coin." And I said to him, the level that you do the job that you do at, I said, what, 30, like, I'm not talking about playing football. Obviously, you look at, and I know you were an athlete as a younger lad. I know you were really fit and you were, I think you were particularly good, athlete yourself. So you take that. So players are getting longer careers just now. They didn't necessarily when I was younger because of the off-field antics. But if you, let's say, for argument's sake, you live till 70, 80, you're playing football to 30, 40, it's less than half your life. You've got to exist for half your life. And when I look at some of the players I knew that were key players when I was a young fella, my mates that were on maybe $2 or $3 grand a week, which was massive money at the time. But $2 or $3 grand a week is not going to see you till you're 80.
Yeah, no,
that's the truth. And so as you say about coaching badges or whatever, if your passion is football and you're involved in football, use the doors that are opened already to get right through. And what you've just said, I'm saying to my son all the time as a parent, not just as somebody that's interested in football, but I know the day will come that he might make it, it might not make it, but it will end at some point, and it'll end when he's a young man. And for any young female or male sports person, you've got to have an out at the end of it.
Well, you've just touched on a really good point there. So earlier on, you said to me 1 to 3% of players make it out through academy. So first of all, you're 1 to 3% chance of making it, right?
Yeah.
But what define making it? I mean, making it to the Premier League, okay. But how many years are you going to stay in the Premier League?
Yeah.
Because they say if you do 4 years in the promised land, you've done incredibly well, right? So again, ignore the 0.0001% of the Kevin De Bruynes and the Messi, Ronaldos, etc. Like, let's look at the other 99% of footballers and go, do you know what? When you're in Scotland at a Dundee, or when you're in League One or League Two, even some teams in the Championship, you're not earning much money. You're really not earning much money. And that money, if you spread it over, as you said, 50 years, is nothing. It's absolutely nothing. So most players retire at the age of 35, if they make it to 35, and they have to go and find another job, and they have to start from scratch. So rather than starting from scratch, because that period there is quite difficult for a lot of people to transition, from my understanding of having lots of conversations around it, I just think that we can do it. We can flip that round and go, look, let's get it at the start. Let's educate and have more options.
Yeah. Do you think, as a senior professional now, Stephen, that because I know that you probably be able to remember yourself, and a lot of players will say, "Oh, I remember when I was breaking into the first team, so and so was particularly good with me, or this one was good with me, or that one was good with me." But do you think that there's actually a formal role within each club, or for senior pros, for certain senior pros who maybe if they had the time to say, right, we're going to get you to do not in the coaching sense of it, but work with some young players away from the field of play, and try and guide them in the way you are. That, if you're coming through at a club, like if there's young players come through at Wigan just now, and maybe particularly players that play in your position, and I know that obviously you were a midfielder before you were a centre back, so they might look at your whole journey and say, "Oh, that's happening to me," and look and say, somebody who's still playing, that they still respect, that they still see with boots on week in, week out, and that person was taking an interest in them. Do you think something like that could work going forward, where players who are still playing could help?
You're going to see it come up on LinkedIn very, very soon, because that's literally what we're doing. It's like since I came into Wigan, I've had many conversations with the academy, and I'm going in to give a talk next week on Wednesday, and we've then got what they've asked me to do is, can I bridge the relationship between the academy and the first team? So I've sort of gone to a few players and gone, look, these talks are coming up. The one off the top of my head is around finance in May it is, and I said to boys, look, do one of you want to go and attend that? Because they sort of they'll sort of go. So rather than just the guy in the suit from the bank who maybe talking a great story, but it's not that relatable, just because of
100%.
You've now got the player alongside it who would share his experience. So we're literally in the process of doing it. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I've got talks with Liverpool, I've got talks with Plymouth, and like I said, Wigan. So it's definitely something you're going to see popping up more and more, and I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
Brilliant. And just finally, Stephen, if I can say, I know that in actual fact, because of the way you are and the way that you see the game, you've covered a lot of points. But if there's any young player watching now, what would you be saying to them, sort of on and off the field? What sort of advice would you offer a young player trying to make it pro in today's market?
Be yourself, 100% be yourself, because you're going to have hundreds of different coaches throughout your career who, some will say, Stephen, I want you to play one touch. Some will say, I want you to play two touch. Others say, I want you to drive with the ball. Now, what you do, you need to stand this side, you stand. They've all got different opinions, all of them. And if I listen to him and then him and then him and then him, I lose myself. And there's been parts of my career, especially growing up as a youngster, you're stood there as a young boy being told or screamed at by a coach that you must do this. Often you will then try to play someone else's game, when actually what got you scouted in the first place, what got you to the Premier League or to the Championship or to League One in the first place, was you being you. So like, never lose sight of that, and never let other people impact that. Take on little bits. There's always some good bits of advice, some good suggestions along the way, but I'll never let anybody take away from me what I'm about, on and off the pitch. I'd never ever do that. I control what I can control. I give 100% of me every day, and if that's not good enough, that's not good enough. But I'm not going to try to change it and go out playing someone else's style. It's something that I learned and got very lost in, as I see many players. Fernando Torres, Hazard, what
Yeah.
happened to they go to different clubs and they're told to play different ways.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
and there's plenty more on that list, unfortunately.
Yeah. Stephen, that's absolutely, honest to God, that's absolutely brilliant. I'm really feel privileged to have had Irwin, and thanks so much for answering everything so honestly and so candidly. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've enjoyed it too. It's been a good chat. So you're more than welcome.
Thank
and
you.
Good luck with the podcast. I hope you continue to get good guests on.
Thanks for watching the latest episode of Making It Pro. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Look forward to sharing the next episode soon.